Welcome to another Twitter Space. I'm Stein. My co-host today is Freiler, and we're talking about, is Cardano the best for a metaverse? Well, this is kind of a trick question. It is kind of a trick question because I think it is, especially for the metaverse that we're all going to be having fun in, which is cornucopias. I'm going to open up the floor today. I'm passing most of this off because the tokenomics of the discussion on Cardano is not my forte, but it is Freiler's forte. And we have a couple other people in here that I think will have an input on that too. So I'm going to open up the floor and probably keep myself quiet for most of the time if I can. I don't know if I can, but I'll give it a shot. So go ahead, Freiler. Take over the show.
Thank you, Stan. Very kind to you. I don't know if I'd say it's necessarily my forte either, but I do love having these discussions with the community. Obviously, I agree with you. I think it's a little bit of a loaded question because I agree with you. I believe that Cardano is the best metaverse, and I don't think that Cornucopias picked it flippantly. I think that they chose it very intentionally, probably for a lot of the same reasons that we're all already here. But I did want to have a discussion and see, maybe what you guys thought, and maybe there's some other aspects that give it a competitive edge that I hadn't really thought about. So, of course, to me, when I think about what are the characteristics of a great blockchain for hosting a metaverse, I think decentralization is going to be paramount. That's always really important to me. I don't know if that's going to be necessarily important to everyone when it comes to the metaverse itself, but I think it is. The whole narrative of returning the power to the user and giving you control of your assets is kind of mute if we don't have a decentralized game. And so for the game to stand a chance of being decentralized, we have to have the blockchain be decentralized too. So I think Cardano definitely has a leg up there. If we compare to, say, like Ethereum, which it's going to be really hard not to compare to Ethereum a lot. They have some of the best known and some of the most successful metaverses. They may have the majority as far as I'm aware. Yeah, we're going to compare to them a lot. When it comes to decentralization, if we look at one metric, which is like the minimum attack vector, how many parties are needed to band together to control the majority of the network and successfully do a 51% attack. So when we look at Ethereum, you only need 3 entities to come together to control 52% of the network, which is kind of scary, I think. It only requires 3 people banding together. Cardano, it would take 24. So we're at least 8 times more decentralized in that aspect. I don't know much about the background of like the JP Morgan thing with Ethereum, but there's some other things too that might come into play there. I think another thing is going to be really important, of course, is interoperability and security. So the Ouroboros protocol for Cardano, which is their proof of stake mechanism, it's the first peer-reviewed one. It's built to be interoperable, sustainable, and scalable, which I think is, of course, all going to be really important when we look at the future of the metaverse. I think it needs to all be interoperable for it to all succeed. And we made more progress towards that yesterday. Of course, we're not fully interoperable yet, but yesterday a new CIP went live, and that's going to allow Plutus writers, which is the smart contract platform for Cardano, to write scripts that are going to be able to read ETH and Bitcoin signatures. So I think we're making good strides towards being interoperable with the Cardano network. I could just keep going on. I think there's so many different things that make it really wonderful for this. Again, comparing to Ethereum, we got lower fees and more predictable fees. I know right now it's not the bull market, so you could probably get $6 gas on Ethereum, but as we all know, during the bull market, that might cost you $200+. So I think having predictable low fees and the more efficient, energy efficient proof of stake system is going to be important as well. What do you guys think? Anybody else got another one that's maybe not so vanilla and just the reasons we're already on Cardano? Can you think of a really good competitive edge? Or do you want to add on to any of those or maybe even contradict them? KB, what's up?
Yeah, hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Let me answer the overall question. Is Cardano the best for the metaverse? Yes, and thanks for welcoming and thanks for coming to my TED Talk. No, in all seriousness. I totally agree what you said when it comes to centralization. It's actually something I wanted to point out, that having a game decentralized on different running on different servers and nodes, it's the overall infrastructure of Cardano really well. And if you're looking for something decentralized, which I had a talk today in our DAO server when it comes to decentralization versus the CBDC that are coming up. So everybody should look for decentralization. And I think it's becoming more important the more stricter regulations will become. So people will learn that they only can have true freedom when they have something that's decentralized. So having the setup Cornucopias is having, I think, is ideal for what's to come. And regarding your second question, when it comes to other change I could think of, well, Polygon, for example, it's not a layer one, but when it comes to that, it's pretty fast, and DeFi is established there. So I could see that maybe different projects might use that too, because it's, as I said, fast and cheap. So I don't know what others think about that.
Yeah, you stole my answer, kind of. Yes, I was actually thinking about sidechain solutions like Polygon as well, and how they will factor in versus things like Cardano. Before those, I would say 1,000%, because as you guys mentioned, the gas fees are insane on Ethereum. That's one of the reasons I won't touch Ethereum right now. However, there have been some big projects recently listed as going to some of these side chains, and it's compelling because you still have access to that Ethereum ecosystem and that huge market that they've already started building up, but you get the better gas fees as well. Now, do I think I still think Cardano is the place to be, mainly because of their systems in place, their reviews, their slower, more methodical build structure, and the fact that it doesn't break every 2 weeks like other ones we know. Solana. Anyway, I think it's going to be a very close race between some of these Ethereum side chains and Cardano. And that's just my personal opinion.
Good evening, everyone. I'm off out to a pub quiz later, so I might drop out a bit early. But I think this is a really interesting topic and very similar to the AI topic last week. I'm not technically clever enough to answer it from a technical point of view. I can say very similar things to what was said about the decentralization, but what I think about the metaverse is, I mean, the ultimate the ultimate kind of like plan for a metaverse is that there's one metaverse that I hope multiple blockchains can actually interface with. That is the plan, isn't it? That the metaverse needs to be a space where there's one metaverse, there's not multiple metaverse. That's a true definition, I believe. Now, the reason why I think Cardano's the best to actually Cardano, I mean, we already hear when Rob talks often about the Cornucopias metaverse, about having industry standards for metaverses so they can all hook together and create the metaverse. So I think Cardano is best because it's got the maturity and also the community. We're not flippers. Generally we're not here just to make a quick buck. We're actually invested in the long term technology. So I think it's the best place to actually lead the way in dragging other chains and other metaverse projects to creating what I think is the ultimate goal of a metaverse, and to have a metaverse that is interoperable and can accommodate with other chains. And I think Cardano has got the maturity and the scientific approach to actually do that. That's my view on it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think you brought up a lot of good points there. I think especially that was one thing I kind of missed over in my beginning was the longevity. I think that's going to be really important when it comes to these metaverse games. You don't want your chain going down while you're still building out the game, right? Solana. I agree. Cardano's rigorous academic approach is another one of the fantastic reasons why I think it's going to be here for the long run, and why I think it's going to make one of the best chains for a metaverse. But yeah, I agree with you guys. Polygon also extremely interoperable. These other layer twos might come into play.
Well, I was just going to kind of piggyback on what Moody was talking about as far as interoperability. When the internet started, back in DARPANET days and stuff, essentially it was a collection of smaller networks, right? So I do believe that we will get to essentially, if you want to call it one metaverse, the metaverse will be a collection of all of the blockchains, of all the projects, of all the games. Everybody's working on interoperability, and essentially, I think it'll go the same way Web 2 went. It'll just take a little while, and eventually you'll be able to move all your tokens from chain to chain and NFTs from chain to chain. Bitcoin just came out with NFTs. That blew me away. I never thought I'd see that be the case. I honestly thought that it was just going to be a gold, a storage of wealth, and that was its purpose. But people are utilizing different blockchains in different ways, and it's fascinating. But yeah, I think eventually they'll all come together.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that's definitely the future we're heading towards, and nobody can resist the allure of degenning on NFTs. It's the future. Everyone's going to do it. You had your hand up, KB. What's going on?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to maybe redirect the question a bit, because now when I think about it, especially when it comes to the term metaverse, that was established way before that, but really highlighted by the company Meta, who simply did not succeed. Well, you could phrase it differently, but you ran their idea into the ground and wasted billions. And the reason behind that, I think, is because of interoperability. Yeah, chains working together. And so maybe to bring another topic in is what is the metaverse? In my opinion, it's just different games, different setups working together, creating one digital space. So you can jump from let's take only in Cardano, you can jump from Cornucopia to Pavia, or you could jump from Cornucopias to Sandbox. So you would have many different projects serving different purposes that are all interconnected, thus building the metaverse. What do you guys think about that approach?
I agree with that. I think that's what it's going to end up looking like in the future. Right now, we got all these different projects working on different aspects of what is one day going to be the metaverse. Like you guys said, all interoperable. It's got to mirror real life, right? Otherwise, it's just just another version of something that we already have.
And going back to my point about the maturity of Cardano, I mean, if we look at the speed that Cardano has got to where we've got to today, I mean, we've got to all pat ourselves on the back. We've hung around for years and years and years waiting for smart contracts, waiting for NFTs, and Cardano has attracted a community of what I keep saying this, but we are a mature community. We're not in this for what other communities are, is what I genuinely believe, and I also and that's why I think that because we are not the first to market in blockchain, in metaverse games, or blockchain games, should I say, because we're not the first to the market, and we've seen a lot of other projects fail, not just in metaverse game and in NFT projects. We've seen a lot of failures and a lot of rugs and a lot of that. And I think because we are plodding along at a really good pace, which is like measure twice, cut once. That's why I think we will deal with interoperability far better than other chains, because we're behind the front runners, but we've got the maturity to look beyond the front runners at these future hurdles, and that's what I think. I think Cardano and the projects on Cardano are just a lot more mature. They're a lot more, thinking long term. So that's why I think we'll end up setting the standards and almost corralling all of these layer twos to do it properly. So it's so important how this approach, I mean, a lot of people put it down to Charles's kind of like approach, but I bet if you asked Charles, he would have wanted to be done quicker. But it's just interesting, and that's why I think Cardano is a great place to drive that ultimate metaverse by leading the way from just behind the front runners.
Well, and let's not forget scalability. Again, I don't claim to be a historian, but if memory serves, one of the reasons this blockchain was built is because Charles helped, build Ethereum, but saw that there was going to be a scalability problem. And so not only the interoperability, not only the speed, but the ability to scale, I think will be another reason why Cardano is one of the best ones out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty incredible how the narrative has changed, right? Have you ever seen a more tortoise in the hare story where, 2 years ago we were behind everyone. Ethereum came out really fast with their proof of work. And like you said, it's not scalable. It wasn't efficient. And so they needed to do something different. Well, Cardano's already going over here on what they're building. And it seemed like we were way behind. And then this year, it seems like we're way ahead. We've got a proof of stake that works way better. It just seems like everything's going so great for us. So it's been really interesting to see that change. And again, I think that their rigorous academic approach and the fact that they're being built for regulations and for the future, I think they're going to be around for the long haul.
Slow and steady wins the race, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. And just their ability to make changes, you know what I mean? Obviously Cardano's got a lot more going for it. We've got Project Catalyst, we've got a treasury, we've got, $1 billion to spend to make ourselves better. I know everyone right now is pretty up in arms over the whole contingent staking thing and whether or not the L1 is going to become permissioned. I think it's really great. Everyone's sharing their opinion. We need people, of course, that are critical of the system and of the network. I try to be critical of it too. What are our weaknesses? Where could we fail? But I'm also an optimist too. And at the end of the day, I really believe that we're all going to come together on a solution. I don't know what the solution is, but I think brilliant people like Alessandro and Charles and the Cardano community, they're going to handle it. We're going to figure out how to get past this. And I think it's absolutely essential that we do stay decentralized. I don't want to go too crazy into it, but KB mentioned CBDC earlier, and it's just been echoing in my mind for eternity this whole time we've been talking. So, decentralization and Cardano is the future.
I'd love to hear more about what people think as far as the staking. What's been going on with the SEC trying to regulate staking in here? And I don't know if this pertains to whether or not it's the best platform for a metaverse, but I do know I've heard some rumors, I've heard some suggestions, I've heard some ways to possibly combat that or move forward. And Freiler, especially, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because it sounds like you are keeping tabs on it.
So from what I can tell, and I haven't checked in too much on the whole contingent staking argument, I don't know if that's anything that's going to need to come to fruition from where I'm standing. Everything that I could see, it seemed like the SEC is cracking down on custodial staking. So again, Cardano being future-proofed and built for regulations, we have non-custodial staking. So I think that we're safe with what we're doing so far. I don't know, how far down the rabbit hole they're going to go. I think that these other exchanges are going to be in trouble despite what they're trying to say. But here on Cardano, we all have custody of our tokens. We're staking them with the stake pool operator. Again, I don't really know what's going on with the whole contingent argument and why people want to push for that for the layer one. Does anybody here have a pro contingent staking standpoint? Guess not. Does anybody else have?
I know Coinbase is screwed.
See, and that's so funny because Brian Armstrong, I just did a video on it too, and Brian Armstrong is all over Twitter and stuff saying like, no, we're fine. That's not us. And it's like, no, you're just trying to use different terminology to skate around it. That is totally going to screw you. And Gary Gensler said just as much in his interview.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to get around that. Now, I have seen some people in the FCC organization FCC, excuse me. I used to be in radio. I apologize. FCC.
So the FCC won't let me be.
Yeah, right. They just won't let anybody talk about it. No. I have heard people within the organization saying, no, this is wrong. We shouldn't be cracking down on this. You know, all it's doing is hurting crypto, an emerging industry that we need to be a part of. It's going to hurt the United States more because people are just going to go other places and things like that. And again, I don't complain, you know.
Well,
I'm certainly
so what's interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, yeah, it didn't pass unanimously, right? Commissioner Price, I think it was going on record as saying, like, yeah, I don't agree with this. We shouldn't be coming out and just giving punishments right away when regulations are vague, right? Not everything is defined. So we're just coming out here and making an example out of somebody when really we should just be defining this stuff. So it raises the question.
She doesn't want them to be the legal system.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's going to be some red tape that we're going to have to figure out, huh? Price, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I wanted to actually talk a little about contingent staking. We can touch on the custodial versus non-custodial component, but I'll give you guys an example. And actually, before I jump into that, I just remember the point of contingent staking is really, it's a strategic pillar of Cardano. Remember, they're trying to build a protocol, or I guess a blockchain that serves everybody's needs. So I'll give you an example of why you would need some form of contingent staking. Well, imagine, let's say US law. You as the business owner have the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason. Roughly, I think that any reason is probably a bit of a stretch, but contingent staking is to meet the laws, of the land. There are some places where you cannot deny business. There are other cases where you can. Contingent staking is there to support those laws in those types of businesses where people do want to prefer some people or the other in terms of what is allowed. Now, there's also an attack vector that comes along with non-discrimination when it comes to staking. So what we have today is a situation where a whale comes in, say, to a stake pool. They go and they just add and add and add money to it to the point where it becomes oversaturated. Now, cornucopias could be at risk of this. This is why they had to open up multiple stake pools. The way it works with the attack vector is that the whales put on a whole bunch of their tokens into this. Everybody's rewards drop by a significant margin. Everybody leaves that stake pool, of course, except for the whale. And then when the whale decides that it's time, they pull their stake out, which is going to be a significant portion. And all of a sudden, the rewards are gone. They basically are able to push people out of the stake pool because you can't tell people, no, I don't want your stake. So that is something that's been observed, and it can happen to anybody. So I think the contingent staking is a security measure against a lot of whales screwing up stake pools and destroying individual stake pool owners. So there's a couple points. It's for laws, and it's for the protection of stake pool owners and the people who are in the stake pools. I'm going to stop there. I don't need to go necessarily into the staking side unless you guys want to talk more about that, but just wanted to get some clarity around contingent staking and why.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So in your opinion, do you think it needs to occur on the layer 1, or will there be other options for handling that?
Yeah, that's the big rub right there that everybody's debating about. I'll be honest, I don't have enough technical skills to know where the contingent staking should be put in. In my mind, Cardano is the layer. It's the entirety of it. And I expect that all of the functionality should be available at that layer. That's why I think, yeah, it kind of does make sense. But then in the back of my mind, I'm freaked out about the notion that would allow regulators to force everything to be KYC. So I have not yet made up my mind, but I am leaning toward putting it in the layer 1.
Thank you. That's good food for thought. I do appreciate that. Real quick, before we go too far, I want to do a wellness check on Stein. He has been quiet for 26 minutes. I've never seen this.
I'm here. I'm
there,
listening,
buddy?
man. I'm listening. Yeah, like I said, this is not my forte, so I'm really interested in what's going on. It's mind-boggling, all the stuff that's happening and how you can do things, staking and different pools and all that stuff. So I'm just soaking it in. I'm here today. Thanks, man.
You got it. No worries. Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot to think about. Easy to get off track in any Cardano conversation because we've always got so much going on inside the ecosystem and so much to discuss. So I love it. I love it. The conversation always kind of comes back to bigger things. We're here discussing a metaverse, blockchain game, of course, cornucopias, a lot, but it is way bigger than all of that when it comes down to it. You know, we're all here for the same reason, I believe, too, which is really great.
Hey guys,
see, I've
if
been
you
ignoring
want,
something.
I can toss in a couple other comments around the metaverse side if you want to bring it back there, like CIP68 and how interoperability works in a very, I guess, sort of an intimate description, if you will.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'll really quickly touch on CIP68. Remember, this is not the only one like it. There's at least one other competitor to CIP68.
What is
the
that?
basic
if
idea,
you don't mind me asking,
yeah.
what is that exactly for people that out there
CIP
that don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you guys a nice high level. So CIP68 is a Cardano Improvement Protocol number 68. I don't know where they come up with the numbers. Doesn't matter. The idea now is there's the ability to dynamically level your NFTs. So what we currently have is CIP25. Yes, it's a smart contract and it allowed us to have, or get away from escrow trading and say inside of the marketplaces, but we can't actually read the metadata inside of the smart contract itself. So you can say, yes, there is a contract, but you can't read anything inside of it. So you don't know how to, adjust the NFT based on what's written into the smart contract. So CIP68 finally unlocks that capability. So even with a locked or unlocked policy, now you can actually adjust the NFT on the fly. So for example, as you use, say, your bubble jet, it can keep track of your miles. That is not something they can currently do. So that's a nice improvement, but it comes with a couple other cool things. One, now all of the native tokens across Cardano are included by default. So instead of having to go and look up the current price of cornucopias, it's natively there along with every other token. You could have, AGIX in there, World Mobile token, so you could theoretically transfer between any native token and hell, anything that exists. So you could take your USD stable equivalent from Shen and automatically convert it into Kopi and vice versa between ADA. It doesn't really matter because now you've got all those prices accessible for everybody within the function, so you don't have to go and write all that stuff yourself. I thought that was cool. And then, of course, there is what's called serialization. So this is a technology that allows you to resort or organize your NFTs and the smart contracts, which is really difficult to do right now, given the current Plutus setup. But with the new Plutus, I think it's called TX, you'll have a much better library to reorganize things, keep track of things. It's a hyper efficiency component. It should make things a lot faster when it comes to reading the blockchain, organizing it, and then building your code on top of that to do whatever you want to do. So those are a couple of key benefits to CIP68 that we've never really had access to before.
Thank you for that very nice high-level overview.
I can also talk interoperability because there's some things in here I feel like, unless you guys know the guts of it, it's an amorphous kind of concept. So real quick, the idea being, what is a standard? What does that even mean at the end of the day? And how do you achieve interoperability? So one thing you got to remember is that you can store things in one of three different ways. You can store things in terms of, let's just say, the images. Like you want to look at the ship. Well, it's made up of different layers. You can either store those layers directly on the blockchain and then sort of piece them together. So layer one could just be, just trying to think, okay, you could be the texture or the color of the ship. So they could do a metallic red. That's layer one. You have to give that a very specific name that everybody else can pick up. It has to be intuitive as well. So if everybody's looking and they say, oh, it's body material, or if you put body underscore material, those are two different terms, and you could break interoperability by using the wrong term. So whoever becomes the dominant dominant metaverse is likely to be the one who defines the term that everybody ultimately aligns to. But there's, of course, off-chain staking, there's on-chain staking, and then there's something in the middle where you've got basically everything represented on-chain, but you have a database that manages all this information and disseminates it out to the universe or to the metaverses. But in order to have actual interoperability, everybody has to agree on what are you going to name this thing? What's the file type that you're going to be using in order to store this? Most people use like GLB files. But if everybody can stack hands on that side, then interoperability is pretty easy. The problem is nobody cares about that right now. So more than likely what's going to end up happening is you're going to need a separate entity that actually helps to bridge projects and how they use or how they've described and organized their information and to help them bridge across. You're going to start seeing a lot of IPFS based NFTs, which another way to say it is you're storing the entire NFT as a complete product on the blockchain or on the IPFS system. It's not on chain. It's just a server somewhere. It's not a long-term solution. So you're going to start to see a lot of those guys migrate over time to sort of a new interoperable system, which has not yet been developed. There is one team out there called Intermeta that's working to do this to help it, when it comes to cross-chain kind of sharing of information. But technically, we all store our stuff in the same place at this point, with the only difference being the smart contract that knows how to read that at the end of the day, and that we use slightly different words, even across Cardano projects, to describe the assets and the meta tags around that. Hopefully, I didn't confuse everybody by going off on the interoperability component of that.
No, I appreciate that. It's good food for thought. Obviously, I hadn't really thought that deep into how the interoperability would work. So sounds like we're definitely going to need an organization that's going to help keep all that straight. Glad it's somebody else's problem, not mine. Kingsley, I believe you had your hand up first. We'll get to everyone real quick, but yeah, go for it, Kingsley.
I wanted to ask Price regarding the recent Valentine's Day update on Cardano, the interoperable signatures. Can you explain that to us? And will that help in the Metaverse?
The signatures? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, the
49.
recent hard fork on Valentine's Day, they incorporated compatibility with different blockchain signature standards. And how would that help in interoperability in cornucopias or other metaverses?
Wish I could speak to that. I've tried to be everywhere, but I must have missed that update.
Yeah,
So
you just dropped on the epoch that just started.
So I don't know much about the technical backend, but maybe I could get Price there and he could explain it a little bit further. So yeah, the CIP49 was to allow Plutus script writers to write scripts that can read the ETH and Bitcoin signatures. I forget the name of them. It was something, but they're used a lot by ETH and Bitcoin. So I was wondering whether it will help towards.
Yeah, whether it will help read, have introduce different depths into the metaverse from other other blockchains, I mean, because now you have the signature compatibility, right? Compared to previously. Yeah.
What do you mean by signature? What do you think the information is within the signature? What are they getting? Is it metadata of NFTs? Is it the transaction IDs and the ledger just showing all the transactions going through? I'm not sure I understand what the signature is.
Yeah, because it's quite new. I also don't quite 100% get it. So I wanted to ask a question that for someone to explain it to me. They're saying something like because we are using, Cardano is using a specific kind of signature in terms of cryptography, and it's not compatible to Bitcoin and Ethereum. We are more like Monero. So they are trying to bridge the signature compatibility with Bitcoin and Ethereum with this upgrade. So now we are able to read or use the signature easier.
So thinking back on like the cryptography side of things, it sounds kind of like what they're doing with, say, I'll give you a simple example with a credit card. When you enter a credit card, it knows based on the sequence of numbers, there's a decoding component. It knows whether or not that's a legitimate credit card number or not. I have a suspicion that these signatures is just a way for them to know here, and most, by the way, cryptography systems are based on what's called a one-time pad. They use a special encoded word that, as long as you know that, you can reverse engineer every single decryption that's out there. But unless you know what that code is or what that signature is, you can't really know what you're looking at. If it's a legitimate transaction, if it's not, where is it coming from? It sounds like this is just a way to validate that you are looking at a legitimate Ethereum transaction. It wasn't faked or just sort of inserted at any point.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Meta, you had your hand up. Second, I believe. It went up and down.
Thanks, everyone, thanks for the great discussion, everyone. I just wanted to react on what Price said, what I completely appreciated. And I think what he explained very well in simple words is standards. So we will have standards in the different ecosystems like we had it in Web 2 at some point. And finally, that will lead us into the omniverse. It's the wording is different. So you said, okay, if you are interoperable, if the interoperability is there between the metaverses, this is the metaverse. I heard other people say this is then the omniverse. Metaverse for me is kind of just a virtual space. But back to the headline, why Cardano for metaverse? I would say, or I remember that the Copy team mentioned in one of the Copy Cafe episodes that one reason was also that the fees that you need for saving the game all the time also need to be small. So scalability, yes, tick in the box, speed, security, and the transaction fees. That does not, we need to get away from any obstacles that could appear there. And I think they know well why they have chosen Cardano. So if we all played for a few hours in the cornucopias environment, and then we want to save and not get up in the home bubble the next day with having lost everything we did the day before, then it always costs some transaction fee and time, and this needs to be managed for millions of players, hopefully at some point.
Absolutely, definitely. Scruffy.
Yeah, I had a question about one of the earlier sips he was talking about as far as changing the metadata in, say, a particular NFT. I think you gave the example, Price, of tracking the mileage on a bubble jet or something like that, or racing stats varying. Is there any threat there that you could have, say, a bad project out there and go back and change some of the attributes that would devalue the asset? I mean, I could see post manipulation of that possibly raising or lowering the value. And I'm just curious if you see any kind of threat there, or if there's some sort of built-in security against that.
Yeah, good question. I actually don't really see a threat on that, because those variables, or the way the variables get changed, are encoded into the smart contract itself. Now, if that policy has not been locked, then theoretically a bad actor could go in and update the smart contract script. But if you've got CIP and a locked policy, and remember the other key thing is that you've written good rules around how to update them, like you didn't allow the math to go into infinity, you've capped some things and you've predefined things appropriately, you should never have an issue around that side. You can't just go and change these things off to the side. You would have to go into the contract itself to make any of these updates.
And I'm more talking about like a project that wanted to come in and not necessarily rug people, but maybe have the ability to change those and manipulate markets. Not from a user standpoint, but more from a bad project that people don't necessarily know is bad unless they go in there and read the entire policy, and whoever does that. But as
did
what
it
you're
last
saying.
week.
But you're saying basically, as long as the project is reputable and they build in the good rules, that and the policy is locked, that nobody else could come in and do that. What about if it was a nefarious project? Would they have the ability to manipulate markets?
Technically, the way the only thing that initially comes to my mind is, let's say everybody comes out with one set of rarities and they write this thing so that after a given set of time, or if you do a certain action that is restricted to only, say, the internal team, that they get the best rarities and it messes up the rarities for everybody. That could potentially be done. Which now makes me think that we got to figure out how you look at the contract to understand how they could change it. That part is still new to me, especially because CIP 68 is less than a week old at this point. But technically, a nefarious project could set that up so that they bait and switch you.
Maybe one input to that point, and then I wanted to go back maybe to the original topic again. I think when it comes to those malicious projects that will definitely be there if it's possible, the more there are, the more careful people will be. And I think that's another business opportunity for others to simply open up a smart contract, I don't know, firm who has a look at them and says, yeah, the smart contract is not malicious or is good for users, and people will start only minting those. So you would have kind of something that ensures that users are safe from that malicious project. So I think it will regulate itself of some malicious project in the end.
Are you talking about like a Web3 antivirus almost, or
No, you're talking about the smart contract audit team.
Some kind of audit. Yeah. And then you simply have to prove, well, we, as a project, you say, we're going to change this and this metadata later on. And there's the proof from an audit that the smart contract only allows us to change those and nothing else. That's it. So,
yeah, I think there will be a lot of services if there aren't already. I think Cardano, because you can't really do too much with a smart contract, there hasn't been a huge demand, but I think you're right. That's going to explode when people need to trust that the smart contract's working appropriately as designed.
Yeah. So, and the other topic that I find really interesting on the initial question that Metaverse, and I still have to get around his new name for anybody who knows who that actually is. It's a good one because Cardano has low fees, and I really hope with the Hydra upgrade and all other upgrades, this doesn't get to any point where we will see similar fees like on Ethereum, which will then allow the onboarding even more than on other chains. I think that's a really good point there.
And I hate to play devil's advocate here, guys. I'm just curious on y'all's opinion. But so right now, ADA is very, very cheap. But in the future, as more people come around, we all expect the price to go up. And as that happens, I understand there may be new advancements. We just had the Vassal hard fork, and there could be other things that help bring up the speed and bring down the price, But my question is I've seen some of these other chains, and I don't know much about them. I've just, come across them in news articles. But BitGert, for example, I've I've heard some good things and some bad things, but they're advertising things like almost 0% gas fees, 0.00001. If people start developing things, metaverse projects on their blockchains, do any of you guys see those as threats to somebody like Cardano, or not so much? I mean, I'm picturing a day where thousands and hundreds of thousands, millions of transactions are going on. You pop into the game and you're buying gold, and then you're upgrading your land or you're racing NFTs, and there's just all these, kind of microtransactions in the background. And yeah, it's fine right now, but as prices go up a little bit, and if other blockchains come and have, 0.000001 dollar transaction fees, could that, I guess, come into play? And I'm just curious what you guys think.
I guess it would have to.
I want to introduction. I think you got a point, but do you think there will be other tokenomics out there that'll get that fee that low?
I think there's definitely blockchains out there that can offer possibly lower transaction fees. I can't speak to the technical side of them because I haven't really looked into them, but I know that's something that other blockchains like to throw out there. One thing I just want to add to Scruffy before we get to Price, because it looks like he has something that he'd like to add to the discussion as well, is hopefully if JET is successful, that'll be another component to that will help stabilize and give us predictably low fees, because they would use that as the main transaction currency for the network. So I'm hoping that we can get it really low, and then combined with just other market conditions, maybe we won't be the lowest fees, but combined with everything else, maybe it'll be lucrative enough that people still want to stay here because of all the aforementioned reasons that we've talked about for the last 48 minutes, decentralization, security, scalability, interoperability, all that stuff. So,
well, what do I do with all my Shiba Inu coins? I got to get those sold.
You're joking.
Yes.
You know what? I
burn them.
I bought Shiba Inu during the last bull run, right after that whole fiasco where Buterin donated a whole bunch and the price tanked. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to quit being a hater. I'm going to join them. I spent very little money. I made a nice profit off it, and I rolled it all into corn. So,
I think that's the only token.
You just got to quit being a hater.
That's the only token I think I made money on. I don't know either. I can't remember the other one. I think it was Atom or whatever the one that is. But yeah, man, it's tough buying and selling this stuff. That's why I don't do it anymore. I invest in cornucopias, and that's it.
I'd rather invest in something that I have more faith in, for sure. Something like Cardano, projects like Cornucopias. You just sleep easier at night. But there's no harm in rolling a couple $100 on some moon dust every once in a while.
Well, that's true. That's true. But the thing I think the most important thing for me is when I was buying and trading and selling, I wasn't doing very good. It was just a gamble, throwing the dice. But at least with Cornucopias and doing things around this metaverse, I have almost like control. It's like I'm helping by doing things. You know what I'm saying? It feels like you're in a project and you're not just a bystander. You're not just buying a token and hoping it goes up. You're actually helping control the cornucopias.
Well,
you get to be a part of it.
Right. And build. Remember, we're going to be building the actual metaverse. And so we're going to help shape it. And they're talking about governance and things like that, which I know every project says and talks about that. But all of those things make, just like what you guys said, I'd way rather just pop it into Copy, play the long game, make it a 2, 3, 5, 10, 15-year play or whatever.
I'm old. I don't got that much time, man.
Wake up and read charts.
I'm old. I can't give 15 years. I'm done. But, it's very interesting because at the last CNFT con in Las Vegas, where you guys went to, Charles Hodgkins came over, right? And he came over to the booth of Cornucopias. So, where are you gonna find that on any other tokenomics? It's just,
Yeah, that's unquantifiable.
Yeah, the community, as you guys have already stated, all around, it starts at the top, right, and comes all the way down. The community is just incredibly supportive, really dedicated. So, Price, we probably didn't go too far past your point with all this side talk.
No, not at all. So I wanted to go back to Scruffy's comment. I don't know if you guys have looked outside of Cardano, but I can tell you what he's talking about is already done. It's out there. So there are two blockchains that I can think of offhand that have zero gas fees and outstanding games. So you've got number one, Wax. If you guys never use Wax, they have the best games, functional, the tokenomics, everything's already going and happening right now. And
aren't
there's
they big on? They're big on like collectibles too, aren't they? Isn't that where a whole bunch of people like big name brands are starting to do NFTs?
not as much on Wax, more on Polygon is what I've seen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Then there's Immutable X. So both of these guys have effectively the native asset approach that Cardano has, but it's kind of built into the main token itself. So that's where Cardano still can shine. As long as you're not talking about, using ADA within the transaction, your native assets can go effectively for almost nothing when you start changing those around. But the whole value of Cardano is not in the gas fees and then transaction batching and the scalability component. It's the entire solution and how it can be universal to virtually any use case. Whereas you take an Immutable X or a Wax, yes, the gas fees they look great. They've got some components of scalability, but they can't do the global decentralization for a massive audience. You can get some really good niches out of it. So Wax, great for gaming, not for really like banking and for financial services. Cardano is nice because it's mobile.
Gotcha. So it kind of goes back to what I said too, is that the overall condition is going to play a big part in that. So it sounds like those would be well suited for a game, but not the metaverse the way we see it in the future.
Exactly. But I'll call out one other thing. Banking sector-wise, I don't think anybody's got it like XRP has it. And that's because of their ISO 2200 standards when it comes to bank messaging, which whenever they're allowed to do what they're allowed to do, which it sounds like they're not going to speculate exactly on the outcome, but it sounds like they're doing well in their case. And banks don't really care, honestly, who they use in terms of a vehicle for messaging between banks. That is one unique thing that I haven't seen anywhere else, and I don't even think Cardano is really going to have that kind of a standard, at least anytime near term. But every blockchain comes with its specialty, but not many can support so many different use cases like Cardano can.
Excellent points. Thanks again, Price. Yeah, lots of great discussion. Does anybody else know of any other chains that maybe could be a big competitor or maybe are doing things slightly better in some way that we can improve on? I like being really critical like that. I thought that was a nice thought exercise. Why did you let me choose the topic today, Stein? We're not even to an hour yet. We're running out of steam.
No, we're not running out of steam.
Talk about your cat.
No, we're not talking about my cat.
Yeah, we just started.
Well, we got a half hour to go. At the top of the hour, we usually not change the topic, but we like to delve deeper into other things. So I think we should start talking more about what we can do with our metaverse, with the cornucopias.
Real quick, actually, I just remembered, didn't we have a question from Seven? And it sounds like we got some brilliant people in here that might be able to lend some good input to that. Oh, I think Seven left already.
And too. Seven just left. I was going to say he was here until like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, man, I kept thinking like, I'll get to that when we slow down. But damn it, I totally forgot. Well, he can go back and listen to the recording still.
Yeah.
We'll hold him hostage. So do you have his question right in front of you so I don't botch it on accident? I think I remember it, but.
Which was the CSX one?
Yeah, I think he was watching a Crypto Crow episode in which he was being critical of the Cornucopias team for not listing the Kopi token on a centralized exchange yet.
Yeah.
I think they wanted to maybe look at the different benefits and potential cons to listing on a centralized exchange.
Yeah, he was wondering why his question. Crypto Crow did a piece stating that he is upset with Cornucopias for not listing on CEX yet. So we can go on that. And I think we were talking about that. I think eProg was talking about that, which is, I think price is eProg. Is that correct? Am I correct? Price? Yes. All right. So Price, why don't you?
Sounds like, well, we got, it looked like KB had his hand first, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, KB.
But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, thank you. I have, I think, a strong opinion about that, and I'm, to be honest, really happy that we are not listed on the tech because of different reasons. First of all, if the centralized exchange doesn't approach the project has to spend a lot of money to be listed because they have to do all the liquidity for the listing itself. Second, Cardano is a decentralized exchange. Why would we be listed on a centralized exchange? And third of all, what happens often when a new token is launched on a centralized exchange is it's shorted into oblivion. It's traded, it's shorted, and so on and so forth. So for us, the long-term holders, to believe in the project and the overall success, I think it's really beneficial that we are not listed. But that's my opinion on that.
I think I think that too, because you get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Not saying that it would come from this organization, meaning cornucopias, but you find a lot of pump and dumps when stuff is listed on new chains. It happens all the time,
Yeah, I think I agree with KB. I'm definitely leaning towards I prefer to not have it on the centralized exchange right now. For the aforementioned reasons, and then also to give us a better chance to accumulate as well.
Yeah, because
I think the people that
let's wait till I get at least 1 million copy. That way we can be involved.
The people that want it listed definitely have their bag already, and they want it pumped right now. Send it to the moon. I'm not waiting any longer. I'm not waiting for the game. I came here to speculate.
I think it would affect us too. I mean, if members of cornucopias have, strong ties. Oh, I love this project, but if somebody has 1 million copy and it goes to $1.50, they're gonna be like, Jesus, man, I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to sell, and then it's gonna crash. Everybody's just gonna sell at that point, and then start all over.
Yeah, scruffy.
Oh man, I have so many opinions now. I wanted to comment on the original question, and then KB just freaking lit up the synapses in my brain, and I'm like, oh my God. I apologize if this is a little helter-skelter, but I'll try to go in order. So in regards to listing on a centralized exchange, I believe in Kobe Cafe episodes, they've said that they're already in talks with some people. Now, they wouldn't list any names, and I'm sure it's not Coinbase or Binance or anything like that, but it's coming at some point in time. We all know this, and I see both sides to the coin. I try to look at every scenario from both sides, and some of us are already heavily invested and would love to see it on an exchange and to see that price starting to go up. But I also understand, wanting to accumulate more, and I'm in both boats, right? So it's hard for me. Obviously, when it's listed on an exchange, more people find out about the project and more people know about it. And so I think there are pluses and minuses. It's a double-edged sword. When does that happen? I don't know. Maybe it's when they start releasing some of these deliverables they're talking about this year. And the fact of the matter is it will happen at some point because we all believe this project's going to be successful. So get ready for it. And I don't know. There's like 7 things I probably didn't hit on because there are too many, but I'll go ahead and let Price go. I know he's got his hand up.
Let me just say something before he gets in. You were saying, you would draw attention to the project, but is that then you got to think about it. Is that the attention that we need? Do we want to have the attention of just the people who believe in the metaverse, or do we want the attention of people who just want to make money?
Well, here's the other thing is that, I mean, I think we want both.
I think I do, but I think that
Moody,
too. But you gotta.
Moody says this all the time. We got to go get the gamers first, and,
Right.
and the investors will come later, and the gamers will be investors, and I 1,000% agree on that. Okay, but at the same point in time, if we want our bags to rise and be worth more, Stein, I'm sure you want yours to rise. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
Hey,
Seriously though,
I'm getting old, man.
I'm just playing. Anyway, no, but seriously, as a rising tide rises all boats. I'm sure I butchered that quote, but the fact of the matter is when things are going up, more people are going to hop in, and it's going to continue to go up. As we enter this next bull run, whether it's the end of 23, the beginning or middle of 24, whatever it is, at some point it's going to happen, and the prices are going to continue to go up. Yeah, you're right. At some point, some people will get out. But that will also give other people a chance to buy in. And if you guys just look at the charts of say, Bitcoin over the last 10 years, yeah, there's ups, there's downs, people are getting in, people are getting out, but it still continues to go up. And I believe that if they build a great game, and I believe they are building a great game, that it's going to go up no matter what, no matter what the markets do.
Yep, totally agree with that. Price.
Thanks. Actually, I was worried I had to jump to a meeting and they just moved it on me. So this is a good day.
Ooh,
so one number, I don't know if anybody knows how much it costs to list on a centralized exchange. The number is about $1 million. That's a shitload of money for these guys to invest very early on. Because now instead of focusing that money on actually developing, you're now spending that money in order to get your token listed, and it doesn't really generate that level of income initially. So I think the expression I like to think about when it comes to tokens is you can have a faucet for pouring out the tokens, but you better have a sink to go along, because when you flood the market because you don't have a sink to drain all the tokens back into, you end up just dumping the price. It doesn't help anybody. It ends up hurting the project long term.
And by the way, I saw that Crypto Crow episode, and I believe his main beef was that the token is not accessible enough to people that want it. So he believes, at least, right, wrong, or indifferent, that there's a lot of people that would love to get their hands on Kopi, but the process of going through a decentralized exchange is just too much for the broader public. But I kind of believe, I mean, what Price said holds water, if you will. Before they build stuff and start putting stuff out, I'm not sure that the need is there just yet. Once the game's blowing and going, we're all in there, we're building on our land, there's racing, there's, custom domes are opened up, and word starts to spread throughout the gaming community, and, large gaming publications are covering them, and there's a lot more media presence. They're doing advertising. Maybe that's when you open up those floodgates and make it easier for the masses to adopt. I don't know.
And one thing I'll call out, I don't really see a future for centralized exchanges. When you get stable coins that aren't really US dollar backed, and you have more infrastructure around decentralized alternatives, there isn't really a need for those guys anymore, especially because of the amount of regulation and KYC that's involved for the projects. It's not really an advantage to go through them. It's far simpler and cheaper to go through a decentralized solution.
Well, let me ask you a question about the barrier to entry right now. I mean, it's super easy for somebody to hop on Coinbase. Yes, they have to go through KYC, but the average person, not us, but the guy down the street that's heard a little bit about crypto, maybe wants to invest a little bit of money, but doesn't know how to navigate all the back end of Web3 and stuff like that. They can hop on, they can take a picture of their driver's license, they can upload it, they get an account, they link it to their bank, and boom, they own some crypto. I realize the DeFi systems are working kind of towards something that is relatively easy like that. But due to the nature, what do you guys think about, essentially it's a convenience fee. I'm not even talking about the the storage, storing not your keys, not your crypto kind of conversation. I'm just talking about the ease of use and the difference between some of the centralized exchanges and the DeFi ones.
So go for it, Moody.
I was just going to say, let's just all hope and pray that in a couple of years' time, 3 or 4 years' time, we've got such a large player base playing Cornucopias because the game is so good and it attracts so many people. How many of those people? I mean, one of the ambitions we want for that community is they want the blockchain and crypto to be invisible to that community. So I think we'd be better off just doing something or not rushing to get on a centralized exchange or anything like that, and just focus on how we can actually attract gamers, and crypto and blockchain is almost like the secondary motive for them, because they'll play a game regardless of blockchain if they enjoy the games. So it's such a conundrum because there's not enough crypto investors who play games to make this game successful. That's a fact. What we want is gamers who don't really give a damn about crypto to game. It's such a double-edged sword, isn't it?
No,
Yeah,
and I totally agree with that. I'm just curious about, how do you get the money into the game, right? Let's say we get all of the gamers, right? As of right now, most typical gamers, if you're on Xbox or, one of the consoles, PlayStation, something like that, you link a credit card to your account, right, to be able to do in-game purchases. And I believe that you are envisioning a scenario where you log into Cornucopias and you're just a regular gamer. You're not into crypto. You're not an investor. And it's all seamless. And you go to buy, say, gold or Copy or whatever. And would you do that through a credit card or link in your bank account? And then,
it happens already, doesn't it?
In the background, because again, whoever processes it almost makes it centralized.
But that functionality is available now. You can buy NFTs with credit cards. You can buy crypto with debit cards through things like MoonPay. But in a couple of years' time, by the time the game launches, that process will be so seamless. And there will be decentralized processes that do that. I mean, there's a lot of smart people in this space. So I think investors at the moment are investors, and Cornucopias have made it really clear a number of times that they want the blockchain to be pretty much invisible to the gamer. So by the time we launch, or like if we take World of Warcraft, for example, there's the auction house in World of Warcraft. I know that you could buy gold through Web 2 and through farming companies, but I kind of think the more we make it, or like you just said, I want to buy that NFT. They don't even know they're buying an NFT. They think they're buying a bubble jet to buzz around the world in. And if they can do that with their Link credit card to their Steam equivalent or their PlayStation Plus equivalent, that's fine. But with respect to a currency, and that's why I'm not too bothered about whether it goes onto an exchange, because it's that is serving the investor mentality rather than the gamer mentality. So I think it's all there. I think by the time we launch a game, it'll be such a seamless process. It'll be decentralized. There will be people making money from it, but I think that'll be better for the actual gaming community.
Yeah, maybe even for crypto as a whole, kind of to touch on both yours and Scruffy's points. I think obviously we need that, but sorry, gotta clear my. Go for price. Sorry.
So, I thinking a little bit more detail around what you were looking at, Scruffy. The actual getting the money from the person to the game. Yes, there's the credit cards and all that, but of course, in the United States, due to the limited regulation, it's just not even an option. And today, the best we've got is what's it called, Stripe, which is sort of a vehicle for moving funds through a trusted regulated party in the middle to get it to your crypto exchange, and then from the exchange on. there are too many damn steps between your bank and the crypto market as a whole. And this is where I was mentioning earlier with XRP and the ISO standard. What the big holdup at this point is most banks, despite having to be on that standard or supposed to be on that standard in about 2 to 3 weeks, only a third of the banks have even done that upgrade to get to that point. So the traditional market still hasn't done the legwork they're supposed to do in order to facilitate all this stuff that you're talking about, in order to cut all the middlemen out and to make it possible for us to have fiat on-ramps built directly into wallets. I kind of see a future where your crypto wallet can be accessed through your bank account and vice versa. But we're still waiting on that ISO 2200 messaging system to come through, because at that point, it doesn't have to be just XRP. As long as everybody has the standard, which is already defined and ready to go, as long as everybody's on it and using it, theoretically, anybody can move currency of any type around just natively. So like I said before, I don't see a need for centralized exchanges when it comes to that transparent sort of interaction. It looks like Cornucopies is already thinking about it based on some of the images I've seen just in the past couple of days, where I can actually see them show euros on the purchase price of a rental of a vehicle. But I don't think that's that far off. We'll probably see that sometime this year after we get the IAMX functionality, which is your self-sovereign identities plus Profila for more of that SSI, your self-sovereign plus your DID. So you can verify the vendors that are helping to move the money as well as the person who's sending and receiving. So this is a matter of just technology over the next year evolving. And by this time next year, I don't think we're going to have to worry about this conversation.
Wow, that would be incredible. All I wanted to say before I almost choked to death earlier was that I just agree with both people that we're just too far away. It's too complicated. We're not going to get people away from centralized exchanges until, we're the easier alternative. It's just what's going to bring people. So thank you, Price, for you're very insightful when it comes to actually what's going on behind the scenes. So I really appreciate that.
Go ahead, KB.
Go for it, KB. I saw you had your hand up.
All right, thank you. Yeah, first of all, thanks, Price, for the really beneficial insight, and I totally agree with you and Moody when it comes to development. I only wanted to point out that it might be good for the user or for someone who's on board on crypto, but for me, it's a dystopian nightmare to link my bank account to my wallet address. So I really hope that people find better and easier solutions than that. Just my opinion, but maybe I'm too skeptical of what banks are doing right now. So
everybody gets paid in crypto. That's the solution.
That is a good
solution. And by the way, on that whole linking your bank account, this is not like an EBT style link. If you guys have ever used Zelle or PayPal, it's effectively the same functionality when connecting two things together. So as long as your account doesn't get hacked, you're good. But somebody would have to gain access to your crypto account in order to pull through funds and then ultimately spend it. And then, of course, if they get access to your bank account, they could technically do the same thing. So, KB, I see your point. There's definitely some risks associated with that, but not any more risky than the situation we're already in.
I've always had a bit of a kind of like a bit of a conundrum in my brain because all of this talk about KYC and about linking your bank account and all of that. So I also really do get the challenges in the US with the restrictions in place there. But as these things develop, especially when we now got these automated crypto tax services and stuff like that, it almost seems like the industry is way too defensive, like accommodating for investors because either they're not allowed to trade or they're trying to avoid tax or stuff like that. And it's such a defensive approach to what we're trying to do. Every gamer not every game, but a massive percentage of gamers automatically link their credit card to their profile without even thinking about it. when you get a PlayStation, the first thing you do is add your credit card details. And I just think the crypto industry needs to be so much less defensive about things like tax and things like KYC, because we won't attract gamers if we're designing it for investors. If we're designing a game for gamers, they've got a very different motive to what investors have got. And this whole industry, we just need to step into that space where, well, actually, it's not all about investment. It's not all about avoiding tax. It's not all about, we're trying to create a game for gamers to play. We're early, we're investors, but I think we're just way too defensive. That's my point.
I agree with that. We see a lot of that. People go up in arms. I mentioned it back in the beginning of the show as well. People just highly critical of things that go on. And it's great that we have people that are really critical, but then you get people that just make bombastic claims. Like as soon as Charles starts to defend the contingent staking that he was talking about, people are like, oh, great. Well, it's great to know where you stand. You want to drive us into the ground. You want us to be the next Ethereum, and people just need to, I think, calm down and rule their emotions out and try to find that common ground. I certainly don't want to give up our decentralization for the cost of bringing on the masses, but I do think that there's going to be some sort of a middle ground there. You know what I mean? Scruffy.
I real quick just wanted to mention something about the difference between, say, a traditional game on a console where they give their credit card and don't have any qualms about it. It's a little different on there, right? Because the assets that you accumulate, you're playing the game and you buy a game for $60 and that's it. It's a one-way transaction. Whereas on the blockchain and with NFTs and assets like that, they appreciate in value and you can resell them later, which does create a tax scenario regardless. There is some tax liability there, like it, love it, or hate it. And so, and I wanted to also real quick pop back to KB's statement, because the way I heard it was more like you preferred the kind of anonymity that, say, a DeFi system provides, and you weren't sure if you were comfortable linking your bank account to a wallet for more anonymity purposes, not necessarily security purposes. Was I reading that wrong, KB, or is that kind of the take you were having on it?
You are not necessarily wrong, but I thought it differently to what has been said prior. I totally trust my ability to not be scammed, but I don't trust the bank to not scam me. So yeah, I prefer the anonymity simply because it's the same reason for why I don't want the tax authorities to have my wallet address. I'm totally fine paying my taxes. Well, I would prefer paying less, but I pay my fair share. But I don't want to give up everything that makes the crypto space, which is privacy. I don't want to give that up. That's what I meant.
Well, and yeah, the other problem.
Sorry, can I just jump in there? Sorry.
Sure.
So I've done my tax return today and all of that, and so many people who I speak to say they're absolutely fine paying tax, right? And it's not about that issue. So let's just say, right, let KB, let's just say you've got 1 million Kopi that you bought for 10 grand, yeah, 10,000 US dollars. If Cornucopias goes to say $2.50 and you sell that for 2.5 million, right? And you want to get that money, or you want to liquidate that money and actually go and buy a house in your home, you will withdraw that. I mean, wouldn't you have to, or wouldn't you want to actually say, actually, for peace of mind, I've just made 800,000. I've got to speak to a tax man and pay a bit of tax on that, and I think, that there's three certainties in life. You're born, you die, and you pay tax. And I think privacy is absolutely fine, but ultimately, if you want to withdraw and transfer that that profit or that currency into something you can turn into real estate, for example, you've got to go through a process anyway. Yeah, this is what I mean by I think it's just way too defensive. You know,
Moody, I don't think that's what he was saying. I think he's fine with paying the taxes on it. In fact, I think we all are. I think it was more like a privacy type thing. You know, people are sending money to support causes in various countries. There are countries where you don't have freedom of speech. And if you support one cause, and if they can track bank transactions to your blockchain wallet address, then you lose a lot of the anonymity, and you can be persecuted for your beliefs based on supporting a particular cause. And I think that was maybe not the exact thing that he was talking about, but I can certainly see it from that perspective.
Yeah, but that's such a small, and I agree, and I think that's a great functionality we've got on the blockchain, and that privacy is totally valid. You know, but you'd still have to, if you made $1 million and you went to a tax man and said, I've made $1 million, but I transferred 20K to a cause I believe in, you know, at some point you're going to have to declare it, aren't you?
I don't think any of us have problem paying taxes. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what I think is actually the root of the issue. If I can also interpret KB for a moment. KB, hang on. We're going to interpret you. I think it comes down to who wants that centralized agency in control of everything. Moody's point is no matter what, you go back to the bank, right? At some point, you got to go back to the bank and say, hey, here's my crypto adventures and I want my money. You know what I mean? So how do we get away from that? How do you get away from that centralized organization always essentially being in control of your money? Unless we get to the point in the future where people are accepting crypto as payments and crypto is the money, but then again, how do you onboard unless you're getting paid in crypto? So I mean, there's this whole mess.
That's what I was saying earlier. Everybody's got to get paid in crypto.
So that's the future we want to head towards, right? Or do we want to bend the knee now and start going through the bank for everything like we have to, you know? So I think that's almost a whole nother discussion. Sucks we're getting into the last 7 minutes, man.
I think we figured out next week's topic. No, I'm just kidding.
I think it's a really good topic, by the way.
I think it's a good
CBDC
topic
earlier, KB. But yeah, here we're coming back to that, because then you get into this whole realm of where essentially your government is still in control. And yeah, like the whole CBDC thing, if they want to roll out their own crypto and then force everybody into that, and then now they've just won the game. So we're walking on a slippery slope.
I just want to, I don't want to leave the call and everyone thinking I'm being a bit of a dickhead. All I was saying was I think the industry as a whole is just too defensive. And that's what, and KB, I wasn't in any way saying anything negative about you. I was just giving an example.
All good.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I'm not writing to all of your government officials now to say so and so is facts. I just think the industry can mature a lot more in how it deals with things like tax.
You've already speed dialed Gary Gensler. I can hear it in the background.
Moody, I'm just saying that our government agencies are listening and they know where you live. No, I'm just kidding.
And we love our government overlords. We're not plotting anything. So
he's like, I live across the pond. They can't get me.
Maybe just one minute or 30 seconds to clarify again. First of all, no offense taken, Moody, all good. And second, I wouldn't mind sharing the specific transaction that led to this investment, but I want to have the opportunity to have them not look at everything I own. So I would share, of course, with tax persons, if they ask me, I would share with them the buying transaction and the selling transaction anonymized. So I would cross out maybe the address, but I would share a proof that I bought and sold it. I have no problem with that, but I don't want them to be snooping around what I own. So that's also the reason why I have gold and silver in physical form at home and not on some bank account or some vault or something like this.
KB, so I have a dumb question. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm finished.
My dumb question is, if they can see everything that you've bought and sold, how can they not extrapolate what you have?
Well, they can, if I don't anonymize certain aspects. But once you have the wallet address, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I simply don't like the idea.
That's the other thing is, remember, any wallet address is transparent on the blockchain. If once they got that wallet address and that's linked to your bank account, they can see everything in there, past, present, and future.
Correct.
Yeah, for better or worse.
And maybe you made a mistake in the early years because you forgot something. Gotcha.
I think this would be a great topic next week.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, you know, because I know we all have I don't think any of us have a great deal of faith in some of the fools that run our countries, but ultimately, tax in most of our countries does a lot of good stuff. You know, it's just the people in that corrupt, or those corrupt places that don't know what to do with it properly. But I think it'd be a really good topic, Stein.
Well, I put it on the list. I did put it on the list. So I don't know if it'll be next week, but it may be the week after or the week after that. But yeah, we got 3 minutes left. I'm gonna allow 2 more minutes of talking, then I'm gonna wind it down. So if anybody has anything left to say, please say it now.
Speak now or forever hold your peace, huh?
Yes.
And now I'd like to read a soliloquy from my new screenplay.
Yeah, it's your last chance to plug, guys. Get up here.
Scruffy goes west. Yes, it's going to be a good one.
I just wanted to say, Gary, if you're hearing this, I'm also over the pond.
Well, Gary Gensler always listens to our Twitter Spaces. I just want to let you know. So.
Well, I hope he knows that cornucopia staking is non-custodial, that we all kept custody of our assets while we staked, and he can mind his own business.
Yes, sir.
Now I want steak, thanks.
I had steak last night. I eat way
Beef
too much
tips
red
for
meat.
breakfast.
You say tips or?
I said beef tips. TIPS.
Beef tips.
Not beef tits.
You got it. You got it. I was like, how did you learn my nickname?
Nice one.
I had curry garbanzo beans. It was very good.
For breakfast?
For dinner. I don't eat breakfast. I
don't know what time zone you're in.
I'm 1 hour ahead of you, but 3 hours ahead of you. I don't know what time you're in.
And I live in the UK.
Oh, well, yeah, I can tell by your accent, yes.
It's either morning or evening here. I don't know.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, guys, we're at the 1 minute and countdown mark. So I would like to thank everybody who came up today and talked. I would like to thank Freiler, my co-host, and next week, I don't know what we're going to do, but it'll probably be out on next Monday. We'll have a good topic. Get on our website at cornmafiaguild.io. We are the Corn Mafia Guild. I'd like to thank the Knights Guild for showing up again. I am Stein, and this has been our Twitter Space. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
This is it.